Welcome to Arizona Wildlife Views. I'm Amber Munig, the Big Game Program Supervisor for the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Wildlife conservation is built on partnerships, and today we'll show you how the Game and Fish Department helped another state reestablish an elk herd that disappeared decades ago. Then we'll visit an Arizona treasure, commonly known as the Kaibab. Next, we'll get our feet wet in a small stream for part 2 of a series on fly fishing. And finally, see how pet turtles are causing problems at the Phoenix Zoo.
Arizona Wildlife Views is brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Hi, I'm at Raymond Wildlife Area, southeast of Flagstaff. I'm in a corral that we built to hold dozens of elk that were destined for West Virginia. You might say it was a way for the people of Arizona to pay it forward, since we received similar gift about a century ago.
It's not every day you see flying elk in northern Arizona. But for 2 days in January of 2018, the skies were full of them. This amazing air show is part of an effort by Arizona Game and Fish to capture up to 60 elk and to give them to West Virginia.
West Virginia contacted us and asked us if we would be willing to help them establish a brand new population in their state. Their elk were extirpated many years ago.
Reckless, unregulated market hunting completely wiped them out.
The last elk was killed in West Virginia in the 1860s, so we're real excited to be working with these wonderful folks out here to bring elk back to West Virginia and put them back in a wild where they deserve to be.
Arizona has a robust population to draw from. Its elk are thriving, especially southeast of Flagstaff where the capture was taking place.
Our elk population here in Unit 5B North is doing very well.
But 100 years ago, it was a different story.
We were in the exact same situation that West Virginia is in.
Arizona's native elk had been eradicated. Its population was down to 0. Then in 1913, Yellowstone National Park gave 82 elk to Arizona.
And that was our first translocation into the state, just north of here, near Winslow.
That gift and subsequent donations makes it possible for Arizona to return the favor. Today, our elk population is about 45,000 strong, and it's free of chronic wasting disease, which is common in many North American herds.
Arizona is one of the few states that still has not detected CWD in the state. We've been testing for 19 years now.
You're all right.
And so it does make our populations very desirable for translocation elsewhere.
I think they brought in number 11 just a few minutes ago, so we're making some progress. It's only like 10 o'clock in the morning, so we're doing pretty good.
The Arizona Game and Fish Commission approved the translocation in August of 2017.
For me, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience to be here. I'm happy I came up, and I'm real happy the commission voted to do this because it's a worthwhile project, and it's a good thing for wildlife.
It's an opportunity to conserve and protect with another state agency.
Everyone wants to help one another. You know, that's a little unusual today, you know, in the way things are, but you know, the wildlife agencies always seem to come together and do whatever it takes to make sure that we're able to disperse, you know, native species throughout their rangelands.
West Virginia is paying the tab for the transport of them, the helicopter picking them up, and the corral we built here and stuff. So they're more than doing their part, and I'd say happy is an understatement to get these elk.
Smile for the camera.
Say I'm West Virginia bound.
You got it.
Watch that front leg. West Virginia brought out 5 of their biologists. We also have volunteers from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and the Arizona Elk Society out here.
Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has been a great partner for us. They assisted us with land purchases. We put 60 GPS collars out at $2,000 a pop. So they ponied up $120,000 before we ever set foot in Arizona.
The helicopter team from Quicksilver Air captures the elk using net guns. Each chase is limited to just a few minutes to minimize stress on the animals and keep them from overheating. When an elk is netted, the mugger is first on the ground. The team binds its legs with hobbles and removes the net. The animal is blindfolded and sedated to keep it calm. Then it's securely wrapped in a sling bag for the short flight to the processing area.
I'm just amazed at how coordinated this thing is going. It's just snap, snap. One elk after the other seems to come in. It's all going very, very well.
Most of the processing took place at Raymond Wildlife Area, a property owned by Game and Fish.
Put radio collars on them, ear tags, and we're even microchipping them, which is kind of cool. We also have our wildlife health crew here, making sure that the animals are in good condition by the time we release them into the pens.
Yeah, she's 105.2.
Under the leadership of Game and Fish veterinarian Ann Justice Allen, they give the animals antibiotics and check their temperatures. If an elk is running hot, they'll take steps to cool it down.
They'll be held in this holding facility for 30 days. Then we will test them for tuberculosis and brucellosis.
Yeah, all the tests came back good. They were all negative. We'll run the elk through the chute system in stages, in smaller groups, as best we can, and into the truck.
This intricate operation, months in the making, is nearing an end. 52 elk, 42 female and 10 male, are ready to start their 2,000-mile journey to West Virginia. When they get there, a 5-acre temporary holding pen will be waiting, along with some very excited West Virginians.
I'm a West Virginia born and bred boy, and bringing elk back to my home state, it's a great honor to do that. But also, I have to tip my hat to the folks here in Arizona. Obviously, somebody helped them at some point down, back in the early 1900s, or that you wouldn't have elk either. That graciousness to us to give us elk, it's got to be a big thank you to Arizona, the folks of Arizona, and the Arizona Game and Fish Department. They've treated us well. It's been work, but it's been fun too. So we're ready to roll.
The Arizona elk have arrived.
After more than 30 hours on the road, the elk leap onto West Virginia soil in the darkness of night. But the future of elk in the Mountain State just got a whole lot brighter. And soon these Arizona transplants will be free to roam nearly 3,000 square miles of southern West Virginia.
It is absolutely conservation at its finest. And it feels pretty good being able to help another state establish a population when that's how we got our origin with elk also.
Situated between the north rim of the Grand Canyon and the Utah border, in an area hunters know as Unit 12A, is an Arizona paradise known as the Kaibab Plateau.
Kaibab means mountain lying down in Paiute, or at least that's what I've been told. It is a pretty special place. World famous for mule deer, but I think the topography, the scenery, the whole suite of wildlife that exists here all contribute to what makes this place what a friend of mine calls the jewel of Arizona. There's no doubt this is one of the most special places in the state of Arizona, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Todd Buck is an Arizona Game and Fish Department wildlife manager. He's been patrolling the Kaibab for 25 years.
Moved up here right after training, was fortunate enough to draw this district right out of the academy. I think I've had some opportunities over the years to move up or move on and chose not to because this place is just so amazing. We're sitting obviously on the north rim of the Grand Canyon looking down a canyon that you can actually hike down. It's a really neat spot. It's on the east side of the plateau, just within the forest boundary. And we're actually sitting about right on the Grand Canyon National Park boundary where we're at. Just one of the many amazing vistas that the plateau offers. No lack of scenery. Topographically, the plateau, Kaibab Plateau goes from the bottom of the Grand Canyon all the way up to about 9,200 feet. So that offers a lot of different habitat types, a lot of different vegetative types, really a diverse place. We've managed a wildlife area here since the 50s, a bison herd in particular at the House Rock Wildlife Area, but it's also home to wintering mule deer herd from the North Kaibab, desert bighorn sheep populations coming out of the Grand Canyon, antelope populations living in the flats below the plateau. So just a whole suite of different species that find House Rock Wildlife Area home. The world famous condor, maybe one of the rarest birds in the entire world, makes the plateau home. Right now there are a lot of condors feeding on the plateau. We've got a species of squirrel that is unique to the plateau, doesn't exist anywhere else. Kaibab squirrel is one of the very special animals that are on the plateau, and it's worth a trip to the plateau just to see those as far as I'm concerned. The Kaibab has a long, storied history when it comes to mule deer in particular, going clear back to before Teddy Roosevelt, but obviously Teddy Roosevelt is famous for putting the Kaibab on the map. Visited here several times, hunted mountain lions here, hunted mule deer here, declared it a national game preserve, the status that still exists to this day. And so about the time of Teddy Roosevelt's tenure, the Kaibab became notorious for big mule deer bucks and has been ever since. That's what really draws most of the attention. The east side offers some unique challenges. It's in the rain shadow of the plateau, so it gets significantly less precipitation than a lot of other places. This morning I was hauling water to catchments because we're having a really dry fall and the wildlife need to have water. Over the last 15 years, we've put 19 new water sources on the plateau. The plateau is an interesting place from a water perspective in that it's limestone topography and it obviously sits right next to the Grand Canyon, so it's incredibly well drained. There's essentially no natural water on the plateau. All of the wildlife that exists on the plateau is essentially dependent on man-made water sources, be those stock tanks or wildlife-specific catchments that the agency has put in. And so we've got somewhere in the vicinity of 170 wildlife catchments on the plateau that support the wildlife populations that exist here. Wildlife management in Arizona is praying for rain. It's all about water. Every district in the state is dependent on to some extent, man-made water sources. And without those, our wildlife populations would be a fraction of what they are in the state. Certainly, this place, if your eyes are open, you're going to enjoy it. That's all there is to it, because everywhere you look, there's something spectacular to see.
Ready to do some fly fishing? In part 2 of our series on fly fishing, we learn how to tackle a small stream.
Hi, I'm Cinda Howard, and I'm a guide with Fly Fish Arizona and Beyond, and I'm standing in the White Mountains in the East Fork of the Black River with Arizona Game and Fish Department, and today I'm going to show you how to fly fish a small stream. So today I'm fishing a grasshopper pattern to a nymph, and my nymph is a pheasant tail. And I'm running about 2 feet below the hopper to what we call the dropper. Now, why would I fish 2 flies? Well, one, when I fish this way, I'm able to fish the surface with the hopper because this guy's just going to float across the surface. And then this bead head pheasant tail is going to sink. So it allows me to fish 2 different depths of water. So I'm fishing on top and then fishing below. I chose this stretch of water because it has a nice deep current that goes through, has a good place for fish to hide. The current comes down and there's a nice foam line, and we call that, the foam is home. Where you see all those bubbles, which is really just oxygen. Where there's oxygen, there's bugs. Where there's bugs, there's fish. So we want to follow that current and that foam. So when the fish are feeding, they are facing upstream. They're waiting for the current to bring them food. So I'm going to stay at the end of the pool. I'm going to make all my casts upstream, let that fly drift over my fish. The goal is for it to look natural, and that means it's floating the same speed as the current. And so to do that, sometimes we have to adjust our line. And adjusting the line on the water is called a mend. And I can take my rod and I can just roll that line. I can get it in the same current as the fly, which causes the fly to drift naturally with the current, and that's how we'll get the fish to eat. The fish know what their food looks like, and it should be drifting at the same speed. When it's not the same speed, we call that drag, and typically that will not catch fish. When you have that drag, the fly's just moving faster than the current. You can see that V wake behind the fly, and that just means there's too much drag on the fly and it's moving faster. So if I make the cast, and then I can just roll that rod tip, put the line in the same current, and that fly is drifting naturally with the current. The other thing that I'm doing is, as the fly is floating back at me, I'm just picking up that excess slack, and that helps me to set the hook. These fish, when they realize that you're there, they're going to spook. And that means they're going to hunker down, they're going to stop eating, and we have to cover a lot of water, to find fish. And so it's like hunting with a fly rod. You make all those casts, you get those drifts, and you move to the next pool. And you just continue working upstream, and that's the key, is upstream. I always want to be behind the fish that I'm fishing to because I don't want them to see me before I get a fly to them. And that's how it's done. That's a wild brown, and we'll release him, make sure he swims off well, and there he goes. And now that you know how to fish a small stream, get out there and give it a try.
They're like the perfect size, they're bright green, they're iridescent red stripes. They are absolutely breathtaking. You see them in a store, or a friend has them in a pond, and you have to have one. So you bring it home, you put it in an aquarium, you've got a fabulous setup. You've got everything that you need to keep this guy going. And then, he's this big when you bring him home, and then he gets bigger, still fine, great in an aquarium, still eats normal things. You don't need special filtration to keep the tank clean. But then eventually you have an animal that's about this big. And this animal may or may not be incredibly stinky. It's very difficult to keep an aquarium clean. So unless you can put them outside in a pond, you aren't going to want to keep it in a closed room, a bedroom, or any closed room of your house. And so, meanwhile, you enjoy nature. So you've been to the zoo, you've seen turtles in the moat, under the bridge that you cross to get into the zoo, and you think, well, my turtle looks like those turtles. Why don't I just put my turtle there where it can lead a happy forever life? And then we reached a point 12 years ago where there were so many turtles in this one particular moat that you could see almost as much turtle surface area as you could see water. And so we decided that there was a big concern for these non-native animals impacting our native aquatic wildlife, because red-eared sliders or pond sliders, they're much larger than our native turtles, and they will eat anything. They're omnivores, so anything that they can catch is theirs. And our native mud turtles are about this big, and they eat pretty much the same things, but on a much, it's harder to get to them if you've got a turtle 4 times your size competing for the same fish or other resources. So we decided to partner with the Phoenix Zoo and start doing a turtle trapping event at the Phoenix Zoo to see if we could remove or reduce this population to something that was more manageable and lessen my concerns and our concerns that these animals can, with a good monsoon rain, leave these ponds and get into our native waterways and actually do real impact to our native aquatic wildlife. And so we've been coming out here for 12 years now, for 3 days in a row in May, and we have captured over 971 individual turtles. And we have removed 580 of the female turtles, so that's how we control the population, is we remove the females. They go to a local reptile rescue, either Phoenix Herpetological Society or the Turtle and Tortoise Preservation Group, where they're available for adoption, to approved homes. And the approved homes are typically a pond and a fenced backyard, not in an aquarium in your home. And the males, we give an individual mark so we can identify them over time. And it's been very successful, because over time we've shown that the number of females that we're catching has decreased considerably. Last year we had 22 turtles in this boat. 3 were female, all the rest were male. In the beginning, there were probably over 50%, sometimes 70% of them were females. And the females can have 25 eggs or more a year, which also is a big deal, because our native mud turtles, they have maybe 6 on a really fabulous year, so they can certainly even the offspring can outcompete the offspring of our native animals. So when we come in to do turtle trapping, I have 255 2-hour volunteer slots over the 3-day weekend. And I have people that have returned for every single year, some of them filling 3 slots a day, 4 slots a day, because they love turtles, and it's a pretty fun project. So we come out, we set 35 hoop nets, and we bait them with smelt. We've got some bait containers that have holes in them, drilled through, and you just put the fish in them. You throw those in the back of the traps, and the turtles can't wait to get in there. And so the turtles, they'll swim around the trap, and finally it's a funnel system, so they'll swim into the funnel, and then they'll go through another funnel, only to realize that they can't actually eat the delicious smelling food that's out there, but they don't seem to understand that they could turn around and swim out. Instead, they just continue to swim forward. So we check the traps 3 times a day, and any of the turtles and traps we bring out, and then we process them. This is where we would identify their species, and again, it's primarily pond sliders or red-eared sliders. And then we identify their sex, whether they're male or female, and then we will take a measurement of their length of their carapace, which is the top part of their shell, and then we take a measurement of their plastron, which is the bottom part of their shell. And then we will look to see if this animal has been notched before. As I mentioned, the males get notched, and so there'll be little sort of U-shaped, V-shaped marks taken out of the outside of their shell. It doesn't hurt the turtle at all. It's basically the equivalent of fingernails, and that's how we identify them over time. And one of the turtles we captured this weekend has not been captured since 1999. It's turtle number 3. So these guys live a long time. Turtles are a very long commitment for a pet. Something to think about. If you have a turtle, or if you want a turtle, or if you're interested in more information on turtles, you can visit our website. It's www.azgfd.gov/turtle.
At the Arizona Game and Fish Department, our mission is to conserve and protect more than 800 species of wildlife for you and future generations to enjoy. I'm Amber Munig. I hope you get outside and enjoy our Arizona wildlife views.
To subscribe to Arizona Wildlife Views magazine, which includes the Arizona Wildlife Views calendar, call 1-800-777-0015 or visit www.azgfd.gov/magazine.